positive outlook on life is recommended for our mental well-being. The problem is that life is not always positive. Oftentimes we go through difficult and hurtful situations and experiences, and we feel, as a result, painful emotions. Emotions, be it positive or negative, need to be felt and dealt with if we want to move on from those situations and experiences that triggered them and maintain a good psychological health. Toxic positivity is the belief that no matter how difficult or dire a situation is, people should maintain a positive mindset. While there are benefits to being optimistic and maintaining a positive mindset, too much positivity represses human emotions, becoming in this way toxic. Toxic positivity does two things badly. It does not deal with difficult emotions, instead it rejects them, and it encourages a positive facade instead of a positive real feeling. In her book, New York Times bestselling author Susan Cain describes toxic positivity as whatever you do, don't tell the truth of what it's like to be alive. Grief expert David Kessler says that toxic positivity is positivity given in the wrong way, in the wrong dose, at the wrong time. Toxic positivity is prevalent, especially in the workplace. According to Cain, burnout is one of the biggest negative effects of toxic positivity. Many companies encourage only good vibes in the workplace, so employees have to leave their real feelings at the door and go about their day feeling like empty shells, or they wear an always happy mask. What are some examples of toxic positivity in the workplace? When we are going through some difficulty, we might try to comfort ourselves by saying other people have it worse. When a colleague is feeling bad about their progress on a project, trying to make them feel better, we could tell them, just stay positive. When we have an issue that needs our manager's intervention, for example, when we're overloaded with work, and they welcome our request, they respond very positively, maybe even acknowledging our good work and recognizing our efforts, but they don't do anything to make the issue go away. The intention behind is always good. We are trying to make ourselves feel better, and we think that comparing our situation with other people who have it worse will make us feel better. We want to encourage our colleague to not give up on the project, and for one reason or another, we go for cliches such as just stay positive or don't worry, you'll make it. Our manager brings the attention to the positive side of the issue at hand, hoping that hearing this will motivate us to move past our issue. Very often, we don't realize that all these things that we say to show our support are in fact not helpful. Despite our good intention, in reality, they do not show our support. The number one reason is because we are, in this way, invalidating our colleagues' experience or our own experience. By saying just stay positive, we could in fact unintentionally be insinuating that it doesn't matter how hard a time you're having and the things that could go wrong with your project. The only thing that matters, the only thing that will make you finish the project successfully is if you stay positive, which of course is not true. If we are realistically evaluating a situation, many things could go wrong with the project, for example. Maybe our colleague could suffer some consequences if the project does not succeed. But we can't skip through this part as if it didn't matter. We don't dwell on it, yes, but we must always assess the situation for what it is. And we should push our colleagues to do the same. Being aware of the bad things that could happen, we choose to believe that the good things will happen, and we work for them. When I started working, I was not aware of toxic positivity. Looking back now, the way I felt sometimes could be explained by this phenomenon. In the last probably 5 years, more or less, it's when it really started to get to me. The latest instance that I can remember is from a few months ago with a friend of mine. I had been waiting for some important official document. It was taking way longer than expected, and my friend was asking me about the status on that, and I told her where I was in the process. Now, I have no doubt that it wasn't ill-intentioned and that she thought that by what she said, she would make me feel hopeful. So she said, "Oh, I'm sure you'll get it by next week, don't worry about it." The moment I heard that, it stirred some negative emotions in me, and what I said in response was just I hope so, and then I stopped talking. What this interaction made me feel is, first, it felt like my friend heard what I told her, but she didn't really listen. Like she didn't really care to listen or to continue listening to what I had to say. Second, by completely disregarding the frustration that I was feeling, I felt like she couldn't bother to acknowledge that the whole process is frustrating and I was in the right to actually feel frustrated. Third, like my problem is not really that big of a deal, when for me it was. And four, by saying that, she was actually giving me false hope. Changing what she said to me ever so slightly would have made me feel entirely differently. She could have said, "That is really frustrating. It's no wonder you're frustrated. I hope you get it as soon as possible." Which would have told me that 1, she was really listening to me and to my current problem. 2, that she cared about me and how I was feeling. And 3, she wouldn't be giving me false hope. When we're going through any difficult situation, when we're feeling some difficult or negative emotion, the first and most important thing that us all need to do is to feel heard and to feel like our emotion is acknowledged and validated. Most of the time, we're not actually looking for a resolution. Why do we actually do this? There is a number of reasons. We are conditioned by society. As toddlers, we learn how society works by simply observing others. So from a very young age, we see that when someone's going through a particular difficult moment, people use certain phrases to express their sympathy. Always thinking that we are trying to comfort the other person, we use the same phrases over and over without giving it too much thought. We want to avoid negative emotions. If we were to stop and acknowledge the negative feelings of the other person, we would be engaging our empathy. Empathy makes us feel the same feelings that the other person is feeling, and when that feeling is negative, we might want to avoid it. We don't know what to say. In certain difficult moments, we might find ourselves unprepared to say something that is authentic. And so we revert to what society uses in a similar situation. We think that to be happy, we must repress negative feelings. I have seen people who are really happy but who have gone through many difficult moments in life. And at the same time, I have seen other people who appear to be happy, but when touching upon a past hurtful experience will make it obvious that they aren't really happy. It's just a facade that they've built. We are all bound to feel a spectrum of emotions in our life. What will keep feelings of happiness alive is not going through life as if nothing can make us feel hurt, but instead we accept that there are some tough times that we have to go through, during which we will operate at a lower frequency, but by working with our feelings, we come out of there a better and happier human being. But why is toxic positivity exactly harmful? It causes shame and guilt. When we tell our colleague, just stay positive, what our colleague might start feeling is ashamed and guilty for feeling bad about their progress. They might feel like their feeling bad is just wrong and unacceptable. It avoids authentic emotion. Not acknowledging the bad feelings of our colleague makes us avoid that feeling ourselves. What authentic emotions help us do is connect with each other. So when we want to keep our interaction as positive as possible, we are in fact creating a disconnect because we are shutting down the other person. It stops us from learning. Another downside of avoiding negative emotions is that it stops us from learning and growing. When we let ourselves feel all emotions, it makes us grow as human beings. It lowers performance. When we are hiding the way we really feel for the sake of our company or our colleagues, we are not fully present. Our energy goes for the hiding of our emotions and the putting up of the happy facade, which means that we don't have any energy left to be creative at work. It makes us withhold our opinions. If we know that our criticism about a product that our company produces is not well received by our superiors because they think that everything that the company produces is excellent, then we are not going to share that opinion. This damages the company because this toxic positivity culture stops improvement and innovation. It does not solve problems. When an employee is feeling stressed, it is usually because of a problem that they are facing at work. Maybe they are working long hours continuously. Maybe they have encountered issues that they are not able to solve. Maybe it is because of a third-party decision. Negative feelings at work have a root cause that needs to be solved and not swept under the rug with happy thoughts. Toxic positivity in the workplace is harmful, but there are a few things that we could do to fix it. 1. Realize that it's okay to not be okay. The most important thing that we can do to not engage in toxic positivity is to develop an attitude that it's okay to not be okay. Everyone, if they were to pick a positive or a negative emotion, would obviously go for a positive one. But this does not mean that if it's not a positive emotion, then we simply ignore it. In reality, we don't have a choice. If an experience makes us feel a negative emotion, we cannot just skip it. Instead, we should change our thoughts about it. We should accept that it's perfectly okay to not be happy all the time. When it is time for us to experience a negative emotion, we should remind ourselves of this. And if a colleague is facing some difficult emotions too, we should apply the same attitude towards them as well. 2. Deal with your emotions. We cannot deal with our emotions without first identifying them. Identifying them requires feeling them first. Otherwise, if we simply ignore our negative emotions with time, they accumulate and can cause a lot of stress in our work and in our life. If we want to manage our emotions, we have to feel them. We have to accept them, and we can learn from them before we're able to let them go. For instance, if our team is not doing well on a project, we might all be feeling frustrated, and we might tell ourselves, no way, failure is not an option here, thinking that this should give us courage to keep going. Sometimes, though, we fail. We must recognize that failure is part of life. We do whatever we can to succeed, but when the project irrevocably fails, or when it's no longer feasible, we have to be okay with that. So if the project does fail, we are okay with that, and we validate our feelings of frustration, discouragement, or disappointment, so that if another project in the future also fails to succeed, we know what it feels like, and we can move past it more easily and by not taking failure to heart. 3. Really listen. When we listen to a colleague express their frustration in their work, our first response could be a toxic positive one. It's going to be okay. Don't worry so much. And even if we want to intentionally change our response, in the beginning it could be challenging. So before we try to put ourselves in their shoes, we must start by really listening to what they are going through. And we must focus on what they are feeling and on validating what they're feeling. We could simply say, that must be really hard. Of course you're upset. 4. Be your own feeling validator. If others invalidate your feelings, be sure that you can validate your own. If in our workplace people don't engage in emotional validating and supporting each other, it's okay. If our manager doesn't recognize the stress or any other negative feelings stemming from different issues in our work, that's a reflection of them, not of us. We shouldn't take that to mean that our emotions are not valid. Instead, we should get good at validating our own feelings. 5. Challenge toxic positivity. Even though it might be uncomfortable challenging a toxic positive person in the workplace, it might be an interesting experience. Sometimes people don't know they're engaging in toxic positivity, so us letting them know that their attitude is invalidating our feelings and making us feel worse could really make a difference in their attitude moving forward. But suppose we tell our colleague that and they still don't change their attitude towards us in similar situations, then we shouldn't bring it up again. The response to an issue will depend on the context, but a good response, free of toxic positivity, would be to voice that we see that the other person is stressed, upset, nervous, and that it makes sense that they're feeling that way. Then we say that we're there for them and show that by actually taking action. If someone's stressed because of an issue that they're having at work, we could offer to take a look. If they're upset because of a scheduling issue, then the manager could extend a deadline by a little. And if there's nothing that we can do, then we can simply offer to lend a sympathetic ear. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.